I just want to ask from your perspective, what really excites you about the multi-chain verse?
We call it like multi-chain of madness, because while building these cross-chain apps, you have to think about a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's just all madness with all these different chains talking towards each other. So it looks really good interconnected web. We had the paradigm of mobile first apps, right? Like, hey, create your app mobile first, create your website mobile first. So I think like we would see more and more apps being multi-chain first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben, and as usual, I'm the host of today's podcast. Today, we have one of the OG DeFi protocols. His name is Sarang Parikh, one of the core developers at Sushi. Welcome to the show, Sarang.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on board. So, as usual, before I always like to start with asking our guests about themselves and how they got into crypto. So, yeah, how did you get into crypto?
Yeah, so hello everyone to whoever's listening. I am Sarang and I currently work as a co-developer in the SushiSwap team, mainly handling the smart contracts and the product research. So like just from the start, I love to break stuff, which basically kind of translated to breaking stuff on the web. And that got me into cybersecurity. And crypto was very innate transition for me because it borrowed a lot of concepts from the cybersecurity industry. And it was during my undergraduate that I got an opportunity to work at Consensus as an intern, where I learned a lot about smart contracts development and the security side of it. So I actually got into from the smart contract security, and then I ventured more on the development side as well. And after graduating in 2020 during the COVID era, I started working on a smart contract wallet app, which basically was like an L2 first smart contract wallet, which allows you to, kind of batch and do multiple transactions together, making the UX much more friendly, having, social recovery via guardians and stuff like that. And I'm a huge hackathon fanatic. So I love to go to hacks and, like kind of make these useless but cool sounding projects. And it was actually one of these hackathons that Sushi recruited me. So that's how I ended up working at Sushi.
So I'm pretty sure most of our listeners might be familiar with SushiSwap, but for those who are not, could you just elaborate and share what SushiSwap is about?
Oh, yes, for sure. So SushiSwap is basically a decentralized exchange. It's an automated market maker. It started off as a fork of Uniswap. So Uniswap is also again like a DEX and a market maker, an automated market maker. And the core innovation of Sushi that time was the vampire attack. So people could basically provide liquidity and stake to get like tokens. So we kind of did a vampire attack on Uniswap, but we have come a very long way from that. So we are not just a DEX and an AMM protocol anymore. We are a lending borrowing protocol. We are a token launch pad. We are a streaming and investing protocol. We have a limit order protocol. We obviously have different kind of farms and staking. We also have launched an NFT protocol, and we're also launching, kind of like relaunching it with more and upgraded and cool stuff. So we do all these kind of, like various things, which basically come up as this DeFi loop. So we have all these DeFi core products that can be, intervened with each other and provide better user experience.
Yeah, you mentioned Loop because the first thing that comes to mind was actually Loop Finance on Terra previously, which is
Oh my
pretty
God.
much what they're trying to be, a one-stop shop for DeFi, right? I guess that's what
Yes.
Sushi is going for right now.
Exactly. So Sushi is giving the users a wholesome experience whenever they want to use DeFi. So from like AMMs to lending and borrowing, we kind of, as you said, provide like one-stop shop for everything in DeFi.
So the topic of today, like the reason why we brought you on was actually to talk a little bit more about one of your latest products, which is SushiSwap. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly. Hopefully I am, but
it's actually Sushi cross swaps, but yeah, you can call
Sushi
it
cross swap. Yeah, see, I knew I wasn't getting it right. Yeah, so what is Sushi cross swap?
So yeah, Sushi Cross Swap is basically a new product launched by Sushi, because what we observed is like Sushi is deployed on like a lot of different chains, and we observed that it is basically a trouble for our users to kind of like use these bridges, go to these different bridge websites and bridge, then come back to Sushi and kind of do a swap again. So what we observed is if we can do something to make this much more UX friendly, where users just select the chains, select the asset on these different chains and just hit on swap, and they get kind of the asset that they want on another chain. Like back then it sounded like much more magical before we created it. Now it's just like, oh, it's so obvious, and back then it was like so much of uh, hassle for the user to do this. So the main idea was to reduce the number of steps that the user have to perform when they basically want to do cross-chain swaps and get their assets on a different chain. So Sushi cross swaps or Sushi X swap allows you to do that. So you can select any chain that's we support for Sushi X swap. You can select the asset and you can just hit swap, and it would swap your asset from the one chain and give you the other asset on the other chain.
Yeah, that is really cool because, for the longest time, everyone has been using bridges like you mentioned. Anyone who ever used bridge, might get lazy, even though they know there is this lucrative DeFi farm on some random chain and you kind of want to get there, but it's too much of a hassle. But, hopefully I think the big idea behind this is, to ease the way we move assets around.
Exactly. And Sushi X swap is just the start. Like we have a huge number of products that are coming up which will have these kind of capabilities. We can talk about it more deeper in the podcast.
For sure. Well, when we get there, we'll get there. Don't worry. I kind of want to dive in this Sushi cross swap because a few weeks back we actually had the Bridge who are building their own native cross swap protocol as well. But from what I understand, Sushi cross swap is building on top of Layer Zero. Could you share a little bit about what Layer Zero is and why Layer Zero?
Yep. So basically, Layer Zero is a cross-chain messaging protocol. So we are not directly building on top of it. We are building on top of Stargate, which is built upon Layer Zero. And Stargate is a bridging protocol, which is built upon the cross-chain messaging aspect of Layer Zero. So if you look at bridges, it's just basically cross-chain communication, right? So Layer Zero is the part which enables the cross-chain communication, and then Stargate is the other side which enables the bridging, and like that's the bridge innovation part, where Layer Zero is the communication part.
All right. And why did you pick Layer Zero or Stargate? Why not build your own bridge, or why rely on something else?
Yeah, I mean, like first reason why we did not build a bridge, because we did not have the in-house expertise to build a bridge, and we did not wanted to build a bridge that gets hacked. So that's like first main reason why we did not build a bridge ourselves. There are like multiple reasons why we decided to go for like Layer Zero. To start with, like let's understand how like Layer Zero works a bit. So if you look at Layer Zero, right, the model is quite simple when it comes. So it basically has an oracle and a relayer, and an oracle basically says that if a user submits a transaction, is the transaction is valid that the relayer has posted, And if this checks out, basically, the transaction is valid and the message is delivered. So that's the cross-chain messaging part of layer 0. I think currently they use Chainlink as an oracle, which is supposedly like kind of, very, very safe. And everybody in the DeFi industry just uses Chainlink, right? So that was like one of the reasons. And if the layer 0 system has to hack, the relayer and the oracle have to basically collude, which like if you read in the white paper, they talk in detail about. So probably if somebody wants to read more, they can read on that. And then one of the functionality that we needed for cross-chain swaps was something called as bridge and call. So whenever you bridge the asset, you also need to provide some extra data on the other side to basically facilitate the swap. So this was something that only layer 0 had all, I mean, like Stargate and layer 0 offered at that time. And we couldn't find any other bridge that used to do that. Even today, we just found like one other bridge which has this, and there is no other bridge which supports it yet. We are in talks with other bridges which are building this in beta, but only as far as I know, there's just one more bridge, and Stargate, which has this in production at this point. And back then it was just Stargate. The other reason is like the Stargate and Layer 0 guys were like very amazing, and they had been supportive of the SushiSwap community for a long. So SushiSwap is a lot community owned protocol rather than, other kind of protocols that we have in DeFi, which are much more VC owned. SushiSwap has a very community ethos attached to it. That was another reason. Then they had like an amazing developer experience on building on top of it. So their team was very, very responsive. So it kind of felt really amazing when we were building on top of it. And there are some other certain things as well. So like one of the thing is like, how does the bridge actually work, right? So there is
I was getting to that.
So there are like different kinds of bridges. There's like lock, burn, mint, and lock, mint, and burn, redeem kind of bridges.
And wrap it, basically wrapping.
Exactly. And then there are these native bridges which directly use the native assets. So we wanted to have like a native bridge because we do not want our users to be stuck with kind of a wrapper token on the other side, and they're waiting for the liquidity to be poured in. Because if you see how cross-chain swaps work, right, they should either be successful or they should be failed, but the asset should be still delivered. So the experience of cross-chain swaps are either you will get your asset on the other chain, or you will get like a stable coin on the other chain, and from the UI you can continue the swap if the swap fails due to slippage or due to price impact. But we do not want you to be stuck with a wrapper token that probably you'll have to kind of swap again somehow going there. And a lot of bridges that we are seeing are moving away from this and moving towards native. And then it was like kind of like instant finality bridge. So that was also one of the conditions that we were looking for. So it kind of was ticking all the boxes for us. So yeah.
So from what I understand, I'm not a technical guy for like protocols like layer 0, where the industry is moving towards too. It's no longer about liquidity and wrapping a token. It's more like to mint and burn. So it's literally burning your token on one side and then reissuing it on the other side and making sure there's no double spend. Is that what layer 0 is trying to do? Because I was actually playing around with the layer 0 NFTs last time, and this is what I understood how it worked.
So that's how layer 0 NFTs work.
NFTs
but
work, right? Yeah.
Not the Stargate bridge. So Stargate bridge, native asset bridge, which basically like doesn't have any wrapper token. So what I mean by that is, let's say it will always, when it bridges, it will always give you the native asset. It will not give you some, let's say, wrapped Stargate USDC that you have to go and redeem. So one of the example would be like any swap. So if you look at any swap, and a lot of times you would get any tokens if there is no liquidity, and that you can swap later on. So Stargate is a bit different, where you will actually get the native asset always. And the way they do it is like is very, very, very interesting. Where they kind of have an algorithm called as delta solving algorithm. So they have written a white paper about it. So like anybody who's interested can read more on top of it. But in short, what they do is like they have like instant finality, but they have like, weights in the account. So according to the
Yep.
weights and the liquidity, you can only send up to like, a specific amount on the other side. So bridges built upon, like this kind of algorithm will support like native asset transfers through these
Mhm.
unified pools of liquidity, which kind of guarantees instant finality. So let's say if you have like an X amount of liquidity on a particular chain, they are kind of, like kind of soft partition into
Yep.
like different other chains that Stargate supports. So let's say if there are like 3 other chains or 4 other chains that Stargate support, so this $100 would be kind of, a portion of that would, let's say that $100 is like X is like $100. So like say $20 would be reserved for one, another 30 would be reserved for another, and then 50 would be reserved for another. So these are, kind of these
Mhm.
weights and soft partition that basically Stargate has, and it restricts you to swap more than what it could basically handle. So native bridges has a problem where, there can be like multiple swaps to
Yep.
multiple bridges from together, and then you have like a lack of liquidity. So to avoid this, they carefully have designed this algorithm, which is pretty good. And yeah, I mean, like if you want to dive more, you can look at the white paper. I think it's available on their Stargate Finance docs, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thank you. I sort of get it, and this is where, like you said, the Oracle is have a very important role to make sure that there's no price manipulations and that kind of thing. So when you swap over an asset, it's not there's nothing wrong with the swap.
Yeah. So Stargate doesn't allow basically swaps. They just allow bridging on the same assets.
Mhm.
Sushi X swap basically allows to do a swap. The way Sushi X swap works is like, let's say if you want to swap from Arbitrum to Optimism, and the
Mhm.
asset that you're swapping is from VET to Sushi. And let's say Stargate only supports USDC as a token that can be bridged, though it supports more. But let's say in this case, we just say that Stargate just has like one token that you can
Mhm.
bridge is USDC. So what we essentially do is we take this VET, we swap
Mhm.
it to USDC on the source chain. We
Mhm.
use Stargate to bridge it onto the Optimism. And on the Optimism, when we receive this USDC, we swap it to Sushi and deliver it to the user.
I
So
see.
yeah.
It's exactly like how centralized payment systems like Coinbase do. When you pay in Bitcoin, it automatically swaps it to USDC for usually the retail users or like Shopify, those kind of products.
Yeah, exactly. So, so again, like we basically do kind of, routing
Mhm.
here, seeing like, because Target suppose multiple asset, we see that, okay, what's the like what's the best route to go forward? Should we go with USDC, USDT,
Mhm.
or like which asset we should go for? And then we basically kind of, do best routing on the source and the destination chain as well. So,
Yeah. A
yeah.
bit of aggregation involved. Basically a DEX aggregator as well.
Yeah, I mean, like we don't have a DEX aggregator yet,
Yeah.
but there is something coming in the future, which is very exciting for our users. That's gonna give kind of a very good price when they basically trade at Sushi.
Okay, so you mentioned Optimism and Arbitrum. How many chains does Sushi support right now for this cross-chain swapping?
I think for cross-chain swapping, Sushi supports 7 chains. That is the number of
Mhm.
chains that Layer 0 and Stargate supports. But I think they're expanding to other chains as well. And the
Mhm.
best part is like we are not just limited to that. We'll be integrating other bridges, and like the way Sushi XSwap is created, like you can plug in different bridges as well. So if there is any specific bridge for a specific chain, we can do support it, and we can basically mix and match all this combo to deliver that to the user. So DEX aggregation is also supported in the Sushi XSwap.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, we did have the bridge on, which is doing something similar it's all about cross-chain swapping as well. And I think many of us recognize that multi-chain is the future. Whether we like it or not, it's going to expand. There are going to be multiple chains, there are going to be multiple communities, and the biggest bet is on the integration, the infrastructure layer that connects all of them together.
Mhm.
So how will Sushi stay competitive, against other questioning swaps like or bridges like the bridge and even Rune, all these kind of other protocols.
Compete, I would say no, we don't want to compete, we want to collaborate. That's what Sushi is best at doing. So in fact, like we already had conversation with like a lot of different bridges. In fact, like D bridge would be one of our future integrations. They're moving towards a new model of using native instead of I think the wrapped one. So we're waiting for them to kind of shift that, and they do. So the other bridge I was talking about was actually D bridge, where they support the bridge and call functionality, right? So for swaps, we need bridge and call functionality. So Stargate, dbridge is gonna be the next. Like we already integrated Stargate, and dbridge is gonna be our next. We are also in talks with like other top bridges, such as kind of Hop and other a hyphen for sure. So again, like we will be aggregating these as well. So like we probably don't want to aggregate like all the bridges out there, because we are careful about some security considerations, and I'm pretty sure half of them would just get hacked in future. So we are just looking at a good coverage of the top bridges, which gives us more than like 80 to 90%. And I think like most time when you look at these bridge aggregators that we have, people are gonna just use these 2 or 3 or 4 top bridges. Oh, we are also in talks with Multichain, so that's a huge bridge again, right? So we're just in kind of integrating the top ones, which are actually working with us, and we are in the beta programs for the bridge and call functionality. And what I also see is like people like like would not go to this specific bridges, so we do not actually compete with any bridge, right? We are the one which enables more traffic towards these bridges. So
do you see a future where DEXs start building out their own native cross swaps, something like what Sushi is doing? And also conversely, do you see bridges building their own DEXs in the future as well? Because from what I can tell, everyone is trying to expand the amount of, cover the whole user journey as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I definitely don't want bridges to come into our area for sure. But no, I'm just kidding. Like, see, the best part is like bridges is like is a bit complex system to maintain, right? So they have people who are much more kind of research oriented on that specific aspect, whereas the DeFi and the DEX does require some other kind of research that has to be done to stay innovative and competitive, right, on that space. What I would see is let's say like bridges would basically move towards getting the kind of best price or getting the best security in the industry, and we would have like build apps like Sushi, XSwap, and there are other apps in our pipeline which would be basically directly using them. So it's just like a symbiotic relationship between us, and it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense for us to basically do each other's work. But yeah, obviously if somebody wants to do, yeah, sure, good luck.
Obviously the larger narrative is, as I said before, multi-chain. And I just want to ask from your perspective, what really excites you about the multi-chain verse? And what happens when all chains are seamlessly integrated?
Internally we joke about if I'm not sure if you have seen the Spider-Man new version, I think it's called Multiverse of Madness something.
The Doctor Strange one.
Yeah, Doctor Strange, sorry, not Spider-Man. I'm sorry for that. Probably people gonna kill me for it. But we call it like multi-chain of madness, because while building these cross-chain apps, you have to think about a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's just all madness with all these different chains talking towards each other. So it looks really good interconnected web that happens. Like to start with, like the next thing that we're gonna roll out probably like in 2 to 3 weeks is Sushi 2.0 UI that we call it. I'm not sure if we do have a marketing name for it, but we just call it like Sushi 2.0 UI as of now. It is like a phased rollout of a multi-chain experience for creating multi-chain first apps. So like we had the paradigm of mobile first apps, right? Like, hey, create your app mobile first, create your website mobile first. So I think like we would see more and more apps being multi-chain first. So coming back to how the UI would look like. So right now, I'm pretty sure you would be also annoyed with going to, these, like say apps like Sushi or other apps, which are, kind of like multi-chain, and you click on farms, you see a set of farms on a particular chain. You have to kind of go and shift chain, and then again, see all those farms, go shift to different chains, see all those farms, and, kind of like sort it. What if I tell
Mhm.
you that this is going to change, and all the opportunities inside Sushi across all the sushi products would be just displayed on a single chain. So when you go look at sushi farms and onsen, you would see all the opportunities that Sushi has on these different chains in just
Mhm.
one single page. So you can, see like this is on
Yep.
Ethereum, and you can basically like sort. So it's also better visibility for other chains if they actually offer good and competitive farming rewards, right? Because now they can actually come on top of, like say Ethereum, and like say if you're on top of that, people would want to bridge
Mhm.
from different chain and be in yours to kind of farm and like make money, whatever. But the thing is, like, so this is the first phase where Sushi would basically allow users to see a multi-chain view of the entire ecosystem. In the
Mhm.
phase two, you will be directly be able to LP into this multi-chain opportunities. So let's say if you have an LP on one chain, just with a single click, you could basically teleport that position onto another LP on some another chain.
Mhm.
And for you, it's just like a switch LP kind of a thing. But underlying it basically does quite a bit of work of swapping the assets, bridging, going there,
Mhm.
investing, and again putting up into the farms. And same way with, like say, Kashi, which is our lending and borrowing protocol. Let's say if you
Yep.
could see that, oh, the other chain has a better lending, you could just basically click on, like select the chain, put the amount and click on invest, and it's automatically gonna swap, bridge, and invest for you.
Mhm.
So you don't have to go to these ugly bridges websites and kind of bridge from there. Everything would be directly built into the Sushi UI itself. So the experience of the users would be much more enhanced, because now they don't
Mhm.
see it as isolated apps. They see this as a unified app itself, where for them it's just like one click to go on
Yep.
these different.
Yeah, I totally get it. That sounds amazing, especially for farming. Clicking, it is kind of high, like how the internet is developed, right? We abstract all the nitty-gritty, the boring infrastructure that the users don't need to care about. All they need to know about is, okay, you type in this URL, you go here. That's all they need to know. And for crypto, for Web3, they're still building that right now, and that's what multi-chain is about. Which brings me to my next point. And we talk a lot about the positives, but uh, what about the repercussions? I think the biggest consideration for crypto is, oh, it's very composable. Yes, that's true. But when one block falls, the whole Jenga tower falls. And isn't that is that a concern? When everything is seamlessly integrated, what happens if one chain is suddenly double spending? Could this affect the other chains as well because everything is integrated?
Yep. Firstly, answer this in the aspect of Sushi. So
Mhm.
Sushi is actually not exposed to any kind of bridge hacks, for that
Yep.
matter, because Sushi doesn't offer liquidity to these bridges, which is the most, kind of most exposed aspect of it, right?
Yep.
So we do have like a momentary risk for the user, but that is just limited to the amount that he's bridging, right? And that's obviously like very very momentary, that you can't even like take it
Yep.
out. So that's something that will always be there, but users are still not exposed to the kind of risk that an LP into the bridge has.
Yep.
uh, so, and again, the updates we talked about, like they also are not kind of vulnerable with this. So at Sushi side, like we're good, but coming on to the bridge side, like that there are, I would say, like there are a lot of different kinds of way the cross-chain communication and the bridges happen, right? Each of the methods have their pros and cons, and I think like currently people are still figuring it out on
Mhm.
like what works best. But I feel like there are a lot of smart people working in this industry. Like for one example, like one of the reasons why I like layer 0 is because of their pre-crime functionality. So pre-crime is basically, let's say if you're bridging something or doing a communication, and you can basically set invariants, and if those fails, you could basically, you know, like look at it and stop bridging at that point. So it basically gives you kind of, you know, like a safety net, that if anything you know, kind of like goes wrong, you can be still protected. But obviously it is as good as the invariants that you write to protect, right? So it's not like anything is not a silver bullet in this case, but it's just like having more safety nets to make sure, like if things fail, we have like kind of you know, um, kind of like safety measures to and mitigate and, you know, control them. The other part is like the library approach. So I personally feel that upgrades in the bridges shouldn't be forced, and this is the larger question of, oh, should things be automatically upgraded if there's a bug, or should protocols choose? So I think like the larger question should be like the upgrade should be opt-in, and, you know, like the users should be able to choose. That's what I basically mean is like, you know, if I work like for Sushi, if like say a version of Stargate works perfectly fine for me, I should have the option to, you know, just stick on that. And obviously, like if they have a newer version which is better, the liquidity would move, and when I have like say sufficient confidence, I could just shift towards that. So we also see like this kind of paradigm also going up. So in the recent hack, right, like Nomad had like an kind of, you know, an upgrade which led to a bug, so which basically like forced everyone to be vulnerable to that bug, even if you don't want it to be, right? If you don't want that functionality, you're still forced to use that. So I think like giving an option to the people who are kind of interacting with these bridges to see which version they want to be in. And obviously there could be like some special kind of upgrades or libraries that you could plug in, and in case of any bug, it's like, you know, kind of like forces you. But in any kinds of, you know, a fancy feature upgrade, the users or the builders on top of these bridges should kind of, you know, manually go to that when they feel comfortable.
Really cool point that you brought up, which I've never realized, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the easiest example is obviously Uniswap. They're all separate protocols, essentially Uniswap v2, Uniswap v3, and till today, you know, a lot of people still use Uniswap v2.
Yeah, let's not talk about it. I would say that we
But that's
have
true.
Sushi, Legacy, and Trident. So these are
Yeah,
two.
exactly. As
I'm
well,
just kidding.
Sushi as well.
You give like a correct example. Yeah.
Okay, so what are Sushi's long-term plans for the future? You know, you talk a lot about your products. You kind of gave some hints about the Sushi UI, stuff like that. Any kind of hints that you can give us, or, you know, show and tells?
Yeah, you mean alphas, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
like,
essentially
uh,
alphas.
so for Sushi, right, it's like any flourishing country has their own problems, right? So we had few issues in the past regarding the DAO, and, you know, we have a country's economic policies for a DAO, that's their tokenomics, right? So we are working towards enhancing that and making it much more better in the future. Then we do have like a product stack which is coming up, which is a lot cross-chain focused, right? So before this, we were kind of, you know, like using bridges and, you know, allowing users to see that multi-chain experience. And in the future, we would be building cross-chain apps directly that would allow users to take advantage of cross-chain communication, to have better you know, like capital efficiency, better uniformity, and it will be like a unified experience. On the short term, we have like newer Trident tools coming out. We have like a few new products launching, such as, you know, there will be also like an open MEV router which will be launched. So the main idea is to, like, you know, add more DeFi Legos to our list and give users the best experience possible, and hence contributing back to the ecosystem. I'm not sure how much alpha should I give, but a lot of our new stuff is gonna be cross-chain for sure. And that does mean, like, you know, it's not that we're just YOLOing and we're just actually testing everything in production. We do have things built, and we have still not released it because we are still working on a way that we can have a lot security considerations, guarantees, and mitigations available in case of things go wrong at cross chain, which we have seen happens a lot.
All right. I mean, that is more than enough. I think everyone should have a rough idea of where Sushi is headed and where the focus is. Thank you so much for your time, Sarang, and yeah, glad to have you on the show.
Yep, thanks for having me. It was amazing talking to you.